Welcome. This is Dr. John DeMartini. This is one of the most amazing and inspiring shows that you can listen into. If you want to be on the edge of your seats, if you want to open up your heart, if you want to expand your mind, and you want to meet incredible people, stay tuned because you're just about to experience a transformative radio show that will change your life. And you're listening to the Dr. Pat Show that's coming up right next.
Welcome to the Dr. Pat Show. Talk radio to thrive by. Powerful, inspiring, and coming to you live, bringing you stories of people like you and me, busting through and living life full out. Get ready to dare to wonder what your life would be like if you knew you could not fail. Hey, everybody, welcome. It's so great to have all of you tune us in and turn us on. Yep, it's getting ready for that day. Although every day is Thanksgiving Day, if you really want to think about it. But it's one of those kind of grooves that we get into as we move towards the holiday. And one of the things that's important for us to think about is what happens during this holiday season? What do we do? How do we do it? What does it look like? Are we happy when it's all over? Or do we have regrets? Well, today you're going to hear a perspective that you may or may not have heard before. And it's about recovery recharged with Ellen Stewart joining me here today, the Pushy Broad from the Bronx. You're going to hear a lot about her show. We're going to talk about it coming on here shortly. But more importantly, what is this idea of recovery recharged? What is it? How is it? What is the body of work that she has been doing to help people who don't necessarily know all the possibilities? And so today you're going to hear from her, but you're also going to hear from what her passion and purpose is about. Whether it's a certified empowerment coach, whether it's somebody that knows that there is something going on in the world of addiction and recovery that needs to change, or is it about saving lives? Is it all of the above? That's what you're going to hear today. Ellen, it's great to have you.
Thanks so much, Dr. Pat. I'm delighted to be here on Transformation Talk Radio.
Look, let's talk about this idea of recovery and recovery recharge from a coaching point of view. And I think this is really something that we don't talk a lot about. Today, we're covering 50 Shades of Pushy in a lot of ways. But when it comes to recovery, when it comes to being recharged, that has a certain meaning, an important one. What does recovery literally mean from your perspective?
Well, the first thing is right before we talk about recovery, we talk about addiction. And when we say addiction, everybody gets very sad and very worried and extremely upset. But being a recovery coach and recharging your recovery is taking the addiction to the point of recovery, knowing that recovery from addiction can be achieved through a combination of self-management and mutual support and professional care from a certified coach like myself. When we talk about what an addict is, everybody gets nervous and everybody sees terrible things in their head and in their mind. I want to talk about what it's like to come out on the other side of that. What happens when people get better? And more importantly, how they stay better. And that's what a recovery coach does. Helps the process of sustaining recovery. And in order to sustain recovery, we have to recharge it. If you don't give it a boost every single day, if you don't give it support and work with somebody like myself to help you move forward, then you won't grow, you won't change.
And you know, this is really it. We don't want to really be looking at our lives, especially when we're talking about recovery and addiction. We don't really want to be looking at some kind of short-term solution. And I think this is really, when we're thinking about this, Ellen, we're thinking about this from what the pop culture wants to talk to us about. And that doesn't really cover the depth and breadth of what's needed. And you've seen this, though. You see this every day, day in and day out. And so that's helped you cultivate something seriously important. But more important than any of that is the idea of having this recovery lead to a great life, right?
Most importantly, understanding that I want to move everyone into the feeling that there's hope in recovery.
Mm-hmm.
Addiction is something that we have to deal with, but recovery provides growth and change and forward movement. And that's the kind of thing that I instill in my clients from seeing this over the past 15 years. That just deciding not to pick up a drink or a drug is not everything. It is learning how to understand yourself after that and the joy that comes from being in recovery. And that's something that young people are still struggling with. And even older people, they decide that they have this scarlet letter on their head that says addiction, and that's the only way that they can identify themselves. But by understanding recovery, we understand that we can be proud of who we are and how to sustain that longevity. And you can do that by learning every single day with a recovery coach.
Yeah. I mean, let's talk about this from a couple different perspectives. You know, I don't understand quite why it is that we have coaches for so many things, Ellen, right? We have coaches. So I have a coach for sports, right?
Right.
I have coaches that help me with my business. I've had spiritual coaches. But when it comes to this topic, we somehow don't really see the benefit of getting assistance, coaching, mentoring, whatever you want to call it. And I'm not just talking about what goes on in a 12-step program. I'm basically talking about how we look at our lives and how we make positive changes, how we understand for the most part. Let's just talk about this for a second. How we understand for the most part that we can actually live a great life. I mean, that's not something that comes to people immediately in this, is it?
No, it's not. People just focus on one thing, and that is now I'm going to be abstinent from an alcohol or a drug situation. So then they believe if they just do that, nothing else will change. But the purpose of understanding recovery is knowing that everything in your life begins to change for the better. And some people don't know how to discover what that is without a recovery coach. But it's not only not picking up a drink or a drug. Recovery coach helps support people that are making all kinds of changes in their lives, moving away from addiction. Maybe they have problems in relationships that they focused on, or they have problems with compulsive eating, or they don't know how to make healthy choices or decisions, or they decide that they want to move into a new career, but they don't know how. Recovery means learning how to change the way one thinks, one feels, and one acts. And that's much more than just being abstinent from a drink or a drug. That's making a life change and a life decision. And we have to learn how to do that sometimes. Learn from the beginning. All we know is that our old ways no longer work. And we want to discover new ways to make positive change in our life in every way. And sometimes you need a teacher, you need a coach to say, let's try this way. It's new and it's going to work for you. And that's what really recovery coaching is about.
Yeah.
Finding.
Yeah. And, look, this is really something that we have to talk about in depth. And let me tell you what I mean. When we come back from break, we're going to talk about this because there's a level of directness that is required when we're dealing with a number of things in life. But when it comes to recovery, addiction, right? Whether it's drugs or alcohol or food, it doesn't matter. When it comes to this, there is a level of directness, assertiveness, pushiness that if you're working with somebody, right, and in a supportive and a coaching and mentoring relationship, there's literally no time between what you say to people to help them not take that drink, not use that drug, not. There is a nanosecond. And that's what I want to talk about when we come back. What it means when we talk about Pushy Broad pushes recovery, there is a reason for it. Unlike a lot of other coaching here, Ellen, right?
Most
Unlike,
definitely.
Unlike that, where we could say, oh, Ellen, gee, I think, let me help you with your money. Like maybe what you should do is maybe write yourself $1 million check. No, this is so different, so needed right now beyond
Serious
anything
and
we're
real.
talking about.
Absolutely.
Let's take a short break. When we come back, we're going to talk with you about why what Ellen does, her form of coaching, is beyond needed. Because you all know this. If you have friends, family that is either gambling addiction, overeating addiction, drugs, and believe me, all sorts of drugs, alcohol, every bit of alcohol. You got it? Wine is still alcohol. When we come back, what is it that gets said to the person that says, I feel like using, I feel like drinking? Let's take a short break, everybody. We'll be right back. Hey, everybody, welcome back. Welcome back. You're going to be hearing a lot about the Pushy Broad from the Bronx. Joining me here today as that is somebody that knows a lot about what we're talking about. Ellen Stewart's joining me here today. And one of the things she knows a lot about is how to reach out and help people, not after the effect, although she does that too, but how about the journey? What's the recovery journey like? What happens when you go through recovery and you need to have both your body, mind, and spirit recharged? This is what you're going to hear from Ellen about. Ellen, before we keep rolling here, what is the best way for people to find out about you, and how do they get to work with you?
The best way for people to find out about me is to go to my website, Pushy Broad from the Bronx, and that's a name that you're not going to forget. I'm a born and raised Bronx girl, and I am proud of it. pushybroadfromthebronx.com. Go there and you'll see the banner that says Recovery Recharged. Just click on it and make an appointment to talk to me. And you will get me, not my staff, but me personally, Pushy Broad.
Yeah.
Or you can call my toll-free number, 800-889-1757. Just remember, Pushy Broad from the Bronx.
That is what we're talking about here today. First of all, you can't do what you're doing and not be available. So let's just say that right away. I want to talk about this, Ellen, as we walk into this holiday season, right? What we're doing is we're looking at not just, this is my word. This is not your word. The temptation. And I say that, temptation. And I think about this, about people that are either new in recovery or not so new in recovery, sure. But what happens to the mind about this? And I want to talk with you about this idea of being pushy and why this is so important in the body of work you do. Because the notion of being timid when somebody is struggling for their life, that's kind of like a little odd.
Absolutely. You need direction. You need someone like the Pushy Broad from the Bronx, like me, who has a part cheerleader, part drill sergeant approach to coaching. I need you to make a decision in that pause that we talked about, the pause between doing something that will hurt you and doing something that will help you. And those are the triggers, the temptations that you talk about, especially during this holiday time. We are bombarded with triggers and temptations. And in order for you to make good decisions, you need me to tell you and to talk to you about why healthy choices are the way to go. And not only that, but we need to bring to the population the fact that recovery is something to be proud of. Saying that you're doing this work and saying that you have grown from knowing what it's like not to be involved in a drink or a drug is something that someone is hopeful for. And if you decide that you want to identify yourself as an addict, I'm going to help you change that point of view. I'm going to help you be proud of recovery. Why? Because I am proud to be in recovery. It's a personal journey for me. After 30 odd years of being in recovery and understanding that I'm proud to say I'm in recovery and not worried about whether or not I'm going to pick up a drink or a drug today. And that's the most important thing. And that's why during this holiday season, people are bombarded with all kinds of things that would be triggers and temptations. And this is why I am telling you that you should book a recovery recharge call with me so that you can reinforce your recovery and stand strong and loud and proud in that and not run away from it.
Yeah. Let's talk about the myth, a myth, one myth. My gosh, Ellen, there are like so many. I don't even know where to begin. Let's start with this one. Let's start with the one that is, I think, one of the biggest myths. At least this is my 2 cents on it. And this is even in the programs, right? Where don't be afraid to be around alcohol. You know, you've got a program, don't be, what? What? I mean, now look, maybe if you got a few years under your belt, but I'm thinking, what are you saying to people like maybe in their first year, don't be afraid to be around alcohol? And why do we do this? Let's try the other one. Let's try the drug one. I like the drug one.
Okay.
Let's not be afraid to walk into a party and, like looking at like an 8 ball or something. Come on.
It's ridiculous.
This is absurdity. And let me ask you about it.
It's absolutely absurd. First of all, everybody's addiction is different, of course. Okay. But everybody's degree of awareness is also difficult. Why would you put yourself in a dangerous situation deliberately to test yourself? I don't believe in testing ourselves. I believe in having a plan, understanding. And I believe as a pushy broad, sometimes people can say, yes, I can, but it takes a stronger person, a stronger pushy broad to say, no, I can't. Understanding what our limitations are is part of growth. Understanding that there are some things we can't do, which will ultimately help us and our mental health is part of growth. It is not a weakness. It's absolutely a strength. So you do not put yourself in difficult situations to test yourself. Why would you do that? Every single time you have tested yourself, I can tell you from an addict point of view, it does not work. You fail. You fail. It's about protecting yourself and understanding what your limitations are and turning around to people and saying, no, I can't be in that situation. It's not a good situation for me. I can have a good time without drinking or drugging, and I am not going to put these things in my path to see whether or not I can refuse them. Because we will fail. As addicts, we will fail.
Yeah. I want to talk to you. Let's continue this line if we could. I want to talk to you about this idea of the 50 Shades of Pushy, because you are the pushy broad from the Bronx, but you also are somebody that's pushing recovery.
Yes.
And you do this 24/7. We're talking about saving lives, but not just the lives of the addict or the alcoholic. We're talking about the family members. I mean, you're not just talking about or talking with somebody that's using.
No.
You really work the entire system of what affects us. Tell us about that, Ellen.
Our family members come to me so often because for many different reasons. First of all, they don't know how to help someone, a family member or a loved one that is going through the throes of active addiction. That's one of the ways I talk to them about how we handle this and what kind of help you can get. But also sometimes people begin to work a program of recovery and they come out of a treatment center and the family doesn't know how to deal with this. They now don't know anything about a program. They don't know how to talk to their loved ones in recovery. And they get the impression that all of a sudden, this person in active addiction is now cured. Now they've got it covered. And they really need to learn all about what's going on so that they can improve their communications. They can improve their relationship with the loved one that's either going through the throes of addiction or is beginning to understand recovery. So I work with families and loved ones a great deal because it's a learning curve and it's a process.
I want to ask you, Ellen, and I think we're going to end up skipping one of the breaks here. I want to ask you about what you've noticed. And let's talk about this when we come back from this break. And then I think I'll skip the next one. I want to ask you about what it is that folks need to be most aware of as we move forward into the holiday season. And what I mean by that is you work with folks beyond whether or not they are drinking or using. You are helping people say, that was your life. You can still have a life. These are the things I'm going to help you with. But sometimes what shows up is what we call a dry drunk. When we come back, we're going to talk about that in the context of how to celebrate who we are and not keep one more secret. But from this perspective, Ellen's going to help us look for the signs. Look for the signs. Let's take a short break, everyone. We'll be right back. Hey, everybody. Welcome back. Welcome back. I'm so thrilled to be introducing you to Ellen Stewart. Upcoming radio show is Recovery Recharged, and she is the Pushy Broad from the Bronx. Before we talk about dry drunks and what to look for, as the holiday season has already begun, that's just like a little news flash right there. How can people find out more about you, Ellen?
Yes, all they have to do is go to the web and go to pushybroadfromthebronx.com and click on the link that says Recovery Recharge. They can book an hour with me and we'll talk and we'll get you through the holidays in a great way. Or you can call me toll free at 800-889-1757. So please do that before the first of the year so you get the special holiday pricing and a good recharge to your recovery in every sense of the word.
Yeah.
So, Dr. Pat, we were talking about the idea of being a dry drunk. And let me just explain to most people, people in recovery understand that term, but people out there that don't know anything about recovery, this is another reason why I really needed to do this show. Because recovery is no longer 6 degrees of separation. Addiction and recovery is right next door to you. And whether or not you realize it, you could be benefiting from recovery. One of the ways that I knew I needed real recovery work was that even though I got clean and sober in 1985, the rest of my life did not change. I was still striving for perfection. I was still making bad choices in relationships. I was still making bad career moves. I was still not being the kind of person that I knew I wanted to be. I had obsessions with so many things that didn't work out for me. But then when I started working in recovery and I started bringing clients and patients to recovery 15 years ago, I realized that it was more than just not picking up a drink or a drug. Recovery means transformation, changing your life for the better, identifying issues in your life that seem to be compulsive for you and not working for you. Whether it is the drink or the drug, or whether it's not focusing on yourself, or whether it's being codependent with another person, or choosing poor love relationships, all the things that one keeps doing negatively over and over again and doesn't know how to get out of. That's what recovery teaches us, how to move away from negative patterns and move them into positive patterns. And that's why I can say I am no longer a dry drunk and I am proud to be in recovery. And one more thing, if I can add.
Yeah.
The more we identify with being proud of being in recovery, the more this world begins to lose the stigma of what being an alcoholic or an addict is, or exhibiting addictive behavior. That's why I became the Pushy Broad, to push recovery from a totally different point of view, to say, not only am I in recovery, but I am proud to be in recovery. And that's the kind of clients that I work with. And it takes a while for them to get there, but they realize how much they've learned and grown from being in recovery. And then they begin to pass that on and pass it forward. And some of the things we're going to talk about in the upcoming shows is how millennials and young people are now changing the language of recovery, so that we're not focusing on the disease or the addiction, but we're focusing on the wellness and the hope and the recovery that comes from it. So we'll be talking to a lot of young people and a lot of people that are proud to say, I am in recovery. And, you know, being the Pushy Broad from the Bronx, I was born and raised in the Bronx. I'm a Bronx girl of over 30 years. And I had decided that I needed to stand up for who I am, because people identified me as, oh, she's just that Pushy Broad. She's just saying what she feels. And I said, you know what? I'm going to embrace that. And I'm going to take it to another level. We're going to talk about recovery from a whole new perspective. It's not some secret that's in the secret rooms with secret feelings and secret steps and secret ideas, but we're going to bring it out into the open and identify it loud and proud, because it's not something that we're going to shove under the rug anymore. People have to learn what it's about and how it applies to them. And that's what you get when you get the Pushy Broad.
You know, one of the things I love about this, and I want to get back to something you just said for folks to know about this. There are a lot of people that you can hire for a wide variety of coaching / mentoring. I mean, you name it.
Yes.
But when it comes to this, this is one of those things that if you're listening to the show, and maybe it's you we're talking about, maybe it's your child, your cousin, maybe you're getting ready for the holidays and you're wondering, what am I going to do when Uncle Bobby, you know, ... fill in the blank. We're not just talking about how to handle it when the situation has gone out of control. The level of coaching and mentoring you do is holistic in that you take a look at the whole situation. So I just want to be clear about this, that this is to recharge your recovery for the holidays, is also to recharge your recovery in a scenario where you are not the addict, but you are the person that is in the middle of maybe a room full. And I want to talk with you about that.
Exactly. It is not just about the person that is in recovery or the person that is in early recovery, but the whole family and your friends. Maybe you're looking at somebody and you're saying, how am I going to handle this? Or I'm going to have a dinner party and I know there's going to be some temptations there. How do I handle somebody coming into this? Or how do I talk to my child about this? Or how do I handle communicating with a subject that I don't know anything about? There are so many families that don't know anything about recovery. And when you don't know the language, then you're not able to effectively communicate with someone that does. So it goes far beyond that. And maybe you have other things that make it seem for you an addictive behavior. Maybe you are worried about making that perfect dinner for Thanksgiving or for Christmas, or you're shopping until you drop and going through all of your money because you have to please everybody. This recovery recharge phone call is for you. It is your holiday gift to you, whether or not you are going through abstinence from alcohol or drugs. But maybe you are learning to take the first step to recharge your life in a whole new way. You know, when I first got into recovery, I was told about the metaphor that sticks with me all the time. And that is when you get on an airplane, the flight attendant tells you to put your oxygen mask on first before you can help another person. If you don't do that, I don't care what you say, you are not good to anyone. So give yourself a gift this holiday, because the holidays can make us crazy. And the one person you need to help navigate you through this is a pushy broad from the Bronx.
Well, and look at this is one of these things where once upon a time, it used to be every once in a while. You know, once upon a time, you bumped into somebody. I was over the weekend. I was playing table tennis, ping pong, and we were just chit chatting. We these are a great group of people, and one of the gentlemen was telling me about his new infant. I believe it's grandchild who was born into this world a heroin addict, little baby brought into this world, and and we just don't understand the depth of what's happening, and it's not just our country. You know, I mean, my friends, you know, north of me here, they suffer from a complete fentanyl addiction. Sure. I mean, Canada and fentanyl, I don't know. I don't even understand that. Somehow Canada gets singled out for that one. But this really is educate, right? Educate, absorb,
correct. Exactly.
Correct, right?
Exactly. And expose the positivity, not the negativity.
Right.
Expose why being in recovery has changed my life. Wouldn't you want to go towards recovery if you knew it was life-changing and transformational? But if you didn't know anything about it, how could you possibly know that you wanted to get there? And the only way someone knows what it's all about is for the people in recovery, the 20 million plus of us that there are in this world, to say, I am in recovery and look how I'm thriving. Look how my life has changed. Wouldn't you want to go in that direction if somebody said how wonderful it was to be there? But who would want to go in the direction of addiction if all you think of is the disease element of it? Let's take a look at the positive results of having a program, having guidelines, not being afraid to speak out, but understanding that if you don't recharge your recovery, if you're not sitting here with a recovery coach like the Pushy Broad from the Bronx, then your recovery is going nowhere. It has to be sustained and nurtured and really blossoming, because we are evolving and we're growing. And you need a recovery recharge specifically for the holidays. Get that boost.
You know, I want to ask you about this. Let's talk about this from a celebrity perspective, because sure. I think it's important we do. Very few celebrities that I can think of have stood up and said, yeah, this is me. I am in recovery. This is what I went through. This is me. And a friend of mine asked me the other day, why don't more do that? And they said to me, do you think it's the whole anonymous thing? And they said, well, I think that's part of it. But I also think there's another element to it. You know, this journey, right?
That's all right. I'm so glad you said that. I interrupted for 2 seconds.
Go for it.
You said makes me crazy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
First of all, two things. You talked before about the myth, right? Let's dispel some myth. Let's just go to anonymity for one moment. Okay.
Yeah.
So here it is. Okay. I'm telling it like it is. This is 50 Shades of Pushy. Here it is. Anonymity in the recovery program means that I can talk about my own personal recovery. I can't talk about anybody else's recovery. That's what anonymity means. I can't say that John Smith down the road is in recovery. That is violating John's anonymity. But I can talk all day long about how much I am in recovery. So if a celebrity chooses to say that they are in recovery, that's their business. They are not violating their own anonymity. You can't talk about somebody else's recovery, but you can talk about your own. And more people need to do that. And a recovery coach will help you feel proud enough to do that. And the other thing is this, my show comes up every second Monday, and the next show is on December 9th. And I promise you that an Emmy nominated actor is going to be sitting here with me admitting how recovery changed his life and why the best thing he did was work a program of recovery.
So, yeah. I want to talk. We're on a roll now. Ben Affleck. I want to talk about Ben Affleck, and I'm hoping to actually get an interview with him. His latest film is called The Way Back. It's not out yet. And this is him doing a film where, this is about him tackling alcoholism in the heartbreaking first, The Way Back. And there's a trailer that was just released upon this. Right. Now, Ben is a 3-timer. And what do we mean by that? 3 times in, out, in, out, in, out, right? But right. He keeps going in and out. And I want to talk to you about this because there was a lot of publicity around him having a sober coach, but there was no publicity around him having a coach that was about life. And people think they're the same. What are your thoughts?
Well, first of all, I can't speak to Ben Affleck's recovery. I, as a recovery individual, understand that sometimes it takes a while for things to work out to where you can sustain yourself. And I hope and pray that that happens for him. And I give him credit for trying no matter what and not giving up. There is always hope. I don't care if somebody goes back to rehab 25 times or goes to work with me 25 times. I have clients that haven't stayed in recovery and they have relapsed and they have come back to me. As far as I'm concerned, as long as you're alive, there's hope. Okay? There's no hope if you're dead. As long as they're alive, as long as you're alive, there's hope. And that's a wonderful thing. But I can tell you that a recovery coach is someone that is going to make you feel good about what you're doing next, make you feel good about how you feel about giving up something that doesn't work for you, giving up something that's a negative influence in your life. Many sober coaches talk about just not picking up that drink or the drug for one moment in time or a space in time. A recovery coach is more well-rounded in their approach to things. I believe in coming from positive reinforcement and not telling people that what they can't do, but telling people what they can do because now they're in recovery, putting positive energy in so that you get positive energy out. And just like I've embraced the name Pushy Broad from the Bronx, I have embraced the fact that I am in recovery. And when you start saying that, and when you start saying that in the rooms, and we start busting some of the myths and working with a foundation from a textbook that was written in 1939 and building on that and having it grow, then we tear down the stigma of addiction and we talk more about what people want to get to. And that's being in recovery.
Yeah. And let's do this. I would love for you to talk about things for people to be mindful of today. And they're called triggers. Let's talk about this because I wasn't kidding when I stated the idea it's okay, you can be around alcohol. And, that is something that's, that is out there. But we need to talk about trigger and trigger situations because it's not always about being around alcohol. It could be something else.
Yes, it can be something else. And I can tell you that if you book a recovery recharge call with me by going to pushybroadfromthebronx.com, we're going to tailor a recovery recharge plan that is specific to your needs. That's what this is all about. In general, if you are in early recovery and the parties are going to happen, the office parties are going to happen, whether you're starting from Thanksgiving in the United States or whether you're starting this whole holiday season across the world, everybody changes. People are running around to buy gifts. You could feel the holiday feelings and the celebrations in the air. You have to understand what your limitations are. And sometimes it takes a coach to say, What are you completely comfortable with? What is making you aggravated or unsettled or stressed or worried? We're going to talk about listening to our body, listening to our feelings, and making it as calm and as accountable and peaceful and serene as possible. And that means not to put yourself in dangerous situations.
And there are many stories. I want to talk about this for a minute. I know we've got a little bit of time left. There's the lighter side to thing. I was out again, table tennis, and somebody gave everybody that was in the room, right? There's about 20 or 30 of us. And the guy, Doug, shows up and he gives a quote from Charlie, right? He gives this quote. And everybody in the room laughs. And the reason I'm saying it is because there's a lighter side to this. And one of the things I think you and I have found is when people speak and they're at either some sort of meeting or they could be corporately speaking and they share their journey, there are some stories that are very, very funny. And we can't forget that that's part of the journey. We can't forget that.
As far as I'm concerned, any story on earth that brings that makes you alive to tell it, especially in this disease of addiction, is a good story. And it's a funny story because you came out the other side. And we learn from both funny stories and from negative stories. But embracing who we are and embracing recovery is something that is always a happy and a funny story, and something that I want to bring to the world. No more secrets. No more secrets. We wanted to show people what it is. I can't tell you how many people have said to me, I don't know what recovery is, and I don't know what this means. And we're going to change that because we're going to blow the lid wide open when it comes to what's the positive side of saying, I am in recovery and I'm enjoying myself for the first time in my life. And that's what's going to happen here.
I love it. Look, I want to make sure folks know everything about you. One more time, would you let us know, Ellen, how they can find out about you, website, all of the above, upcoming radio show? Please, let's do that right now, because I know we can get on a roll here and we'll forget.
We can talk for hours.
Yeah.
Okay. So I want you to go to pushybroadfromthebronx.com and click on this line that says Recovery Recharged. Book a 1-hour call with me. It's going to be for a limited time around the holidays at a special holiday price. Just click on it. Take a look at the rest of my website. Find out all about me. I am going to be on the second Monday of every month with this wonderful woman, Dr. Pat at Transformation Talk Radio. We're really going to kick it up when the Pushy Broad from the Bronx is in the house for sure. Pushybroadfromthebronx.com, Recovery Recharged. Please find me, talk to me. I'm here to help. Have a wonderful holiday.
And Ellen, I want to ask you one last question. We talked about a lot today, but it's the beginning of a conversation, right? Yes. We are coming up to the holidays, and I will tell you that, what are some of the signs? We're going to talk about that in upcoming shows. I mean, literally, if you put a turkey in the oven and it cooks for 6 hours, and it's not done, and then you leave it in the oven for another 2 hours, now 8 hours, and you pull that turkey out and you cut it and it's raw,
order a pizza.
Light bulb goes on to say, I forgot to turn the oven on. That's part of the story. What's your personal message, Ellen? What would you like to leave us with?
I want you to know that recovery is for everybody. Recovery is not just about picking up a drink or a drug. Recovery is about learning a new way of life. And to recharge your recovery means working with a recovery coach, the Pushy Broad from the Bronx. So come find me. Let's talk.
Yeah. And I want to say to everybody about you, Ellen, one of the things that Ellen does is what many, many are not doing, is not only is she looking at recovery, but she's looking at a thriving life for you or for your family or for the families out there in the context of living an amazing life. Ellen, thank you so much. We're going to have a blast.
Thank you, Dr. Pat. I'm looking forward to it.
And my last words for everybody is turn the oven on. Stay tuned, everybody. We'll be right back.